Welcome. We are honored to have Grant Barnhill with us today. Grant is the founder of Shift Workspaces. He is in the Denver area. And I have been, I think, to maybe just one of Grant's locations. If you're watching on YouTube, Gio has one in his background. They are unique and fabulous and very specifically designed for the membership that Grant and his team serve. So I'm excited to dig into that a little bit today. Grant, I remember the first time I visited your space, I can't even remember why we were in town. It was with Kane. Kane was like, we're going to see Grant. And we came over and you did the whole concierge thing and we had snacks and I'm always hungry. So you had me at like the Metza plate or whatever you
Nice.
served us. I was so intrigued by that approach because no one does that in our industry. And it's like the ultimate hospitality, feeding people. There's more to it than that. But I have been fascinated by your brand and, how you serve your members and am excited to talk about it. And we were just talking in our pre-chat that Gio convinced you to be on stage and talk about your brand and culture at the GWA conference in September. So we won't do too many spoils in this conversation, but we're excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be there. This should be a great talk.
Yeah,
well, thanks for having me today.
Yeah, for sure. I tell people, and there's a lot of operators listening, so I love y'all too. But I tell people that you are definitely the best boutique operator in the country, right? Everything from the product and how much goes into choosing every single bit of the design. But why don't we kind of start with your background? I mean, you have a real estate background.
Tell the story. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So my background really is in, I started off as a broker in the mid 80s in Denver with a local firm, and then started buying apartment property in the mid 90s and really was an adaptive reuse apartment redeveloper in the neighborhoods around downtown and did that for about 25 years. And we ended up buying our first, what became the first Shift location in 2010. And we bought it as an office for our property management company. And so I started researching executive suites and trying to figure out how we would rent out the additional offices that we had. We only needed about 3,000 feet for boutique apartments. And we had, the first building was about 10,000 feet. And so I started doing a lot of research and I actually ended up 6 months later or so touring WeWork's second location in New York City.
Oh, that's right. Like same time. Yeah.
It was crazy. Yeah. It was, I don't know, maybe midway through 2010 or first of 2011. And I was so fascinated, I started taking photos and the general manager tried to grab my phone and then kicked me out of the building. And it was a thing. And back then WeWork was super proprietary about their design and layouts, and they weren't really ready to unveil it yet. And it was really cool to see, where they were. I was pretty blown away. And that was the beginning of trying to figure out how we wanted to approach it. And we took, some of the design elements from WeWork from the very beginning, but over time it evolved into much more of a boutique hotel like concept, and really geared towards a different demographic. Our member demographic average age is 40. Most have families. A lot of the companies that are here have been in business for 10 years or so, or they're a satellite office from a larger company. And they're here to work, and there's not a lot of ping pong and and beer pitchers, but definitely happy hours and a fun environment. But people are really here more for work.
I think that was one of the insights I took away from you talking through that is you're so clear on who you serve. And I'm curious, like, did you go into it with that plan? And did you plan for one location, or when you figured out this business, were you like, this is what we're going to do?
I think that what happened for me is I just fell in love with co-working and just the whole industry. And the more I did it, the more I wanted to do it full time. And I actually went to so Shift was one of 5 different companies that we owned back in 2012. And I woke up one day a couple of years later after spending a bunch of time on it and said, I want to do this full time. Would you buy me out? And he ended up buying me out of our other businesses. And I took Shift, and he invested in our next 2 deals. And it was really organic, but I just fell in love with it and wanted to do more of it. But as far as the type of members that we have, it's actually been very deliberate. And I think that coming from a development background, I've realized the value of a stable rent roll. And the last thing I want are, to fill this building full of members that are going to go back to their homes or go back to their parents' basements when the shit hits the fan. And I want to have people here that need to be here and that need to bring their clients here, and they need to be in a professional environment. And so for me, it's strategic, and I really want to have as safe and as a high quality rent roll as I can. So that's why we target that, that specific demographic.
Yeah, and that demographic that you choose then dictates your design, right? And I think your design is one of the most unique designs. Again, I think you literally make every decision or have some touch point on every decision on the design. And I think what I found the most unique is it's kind of like you have a theme, right? Depending on where you've been traveling and who you've connected with. I mean, you're very much a person that loves connecting with people that are different than you, which adds that wonderful culture. But do you want to kind of touch a little bit into that? I mean, I think you've got some artists, you've got your buddy from Burning Man, you've got some different type of touch points there.
Sure. Yeah, to start with, the building you're in Shift Littleton, which is about 10 miles south of downtown Denver, for those of you who don't know. But a lot of the design there came from a trip I took to Oaxaca for my birthday, 5 years ago or so. And I think we have, 40 or 50 pieces of art from Oaxaca, including there's an artist group that's called La Pistola, and they actually do graffiti art in Oaxaca and in Mexico, and they have a pretty strong social message. And most of what they've done historically has been, critical of the Mexican government and critical of a lot of the politics. And I thought their work it really blew me away. So we actually approached them and said, hey, we've got a little bit different take. We know what you don't like and what you're against, but what are you for? And would you be willing to create art that expresses how you'd really like to see the world? And they did that. They created 3 huge murals there, along with some individual pieces that really resonate with our company values and our mission. But the lobby really looks more like a hotel, and I've spent a fair amount of time in San Miguel de Allende at the Rosewood Hotel there, and I think the Rosewood brand is probably it's the closest hotel brand to what we want to be. It's more accessible than a Four Seasons or Ritz, but it's still exclusive, and they really have nailed the whole service component. And I've tried to design Shift Littleton to reflect a lot of the kind of the Oaxacan heritage, but also what I've seen at Rosewood. And I pick every finish. So when we do these, I pick every light fixture, wallpaper, piece of furniture, light, everything. And I've got a lot of help. I've got a really talented designer that we work with on a couple projects, and she'll provide a selection of 10 or so different items, and I'll pick from what she's selected. But it's a real time intensive process, and it's one that I really enjoy. It's probably my favorite part of what I do, actually.
Yeah, and I think a big part of your culture and your design even ties back to your, again, your love of people. And I think you are definitely one of the original Burning Men that was involved in that, right? And so you and I have had some great conversation about kind of the people you get to meet out there, how you get to just interact with all kinds, right? And I think, you know, you want to talk about kind of that a little bit, and the cards
Sure.
that y'all have done, and then even how you use that same artist to do so much cool stuff within your spaces.
Sure. Yeah, I started going to Burning Man in 1998, and I wasn't, that wasn't the first year of it, but I think at that point they had maybe 8,000 or 9,000 people, and since '98 it's grown to an event over 80,000 people. So it had a much different flavor in '98 than it does now. But I actually had always wanted to build an art car, and so art cars are vehicles that aren't licensed, but they're really unique, and they're just to drive at the event. And every time I'd go out there, I would see these crazy contraptions. And there was this one car called El Pulpo that's an octopus that's, I don't know, 30 feet tall and probably 40 feet wide, and shoots fire and from every tentacle. And when I would see these contraptions, it would just blow me away. And so I saw this giant dragonfly one day when I was riding my bike down a street, and really wanted to go check it out, but felt a little uncomfortable going into this camp, and actually rode away. And then something said stop, and so I went back and started looking at it. And then Chris Merrick came out, who was the maker who designed it and built it, and we started having a conversation, and just really hit it off. And I ended up buying the car after Burning Man that year, and we ended up establishing a relationship where he's done a bunch of projects at Shift. He built we have at the Bannock location a whole bunch of electronics at the bar on the first floor that they came out of the building when we bought it, and he retrofitted it into some really cool art and built kind of a steampunk chandelier on the third floor, and then 3 or 4 pieces at Shift Littleton. But yeah, it's just kind of it's a little bit of a slant on. It was really difficult to try to figure out how to integrate Burning Man into the Rosewood Hotel. Because it's a whole, it's a different clientele. I don't know how many burners are actually stay at the Rosewood, but I know at least one. But Chris we've had a great partnership, and we built another 4 or 5 cars that are part of our camp. It's called a Camp Fly, and it's actually our first year under the new name is I leave actually a week or 5 days from today. And we're hauling out, 2 huge truckloads of cars and camp gear and all kinds of fun stuff. So it's a good time. Actually, here's our camp logo.
Wow.
Awesome. Yeah, and your cars are dragonflies and a butterfly, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's really fun. We have a great time. But I think that it's so inspirational out there, and it's amazing how many people that you meet, and there's no hierarchy like there is in kind of outside of in the business world. I have had conversations with the founders of Google, with Elon Musk, a couple of years ago, and they're just out there. They're just normal people, and it's a pretty cool place to be inspired.
Yeah, and I think it's awesome your commitment to do it time and time again, and just to see that evolution, the shift of it has been a lot of fun for you. And I think a big part of it is you actually there's no monetary exchange out there, right? So it's all about hospitality and serving others. And I think that's made a good segue into your business, right? I mean, you've got Jamie briefly touched on it, but you've actually got a culinary concierge program that is very unique to our industry. Do you want to talk about that a sec?
Sure. Yeah, it started when Sibylla and I were staying at the Rosewood in San Miguel, and we were sitting by the pool, and they came out and they brought it was watermelon that was skewered with this spice. I can't remember.
Tahini.
Yes, that's it. And we looked at each other and were like, why don't we do that? This was, I don't know, six or 7 years ago. And that was the beginning of it. But yeah, we have 2 full-time people. We have 1 culinary concierge that serves Bannock and Corona, and then 1 full-time at Littleton. And it's really, it started off just doing a community-wide event once a day. And so what we do is we bring our entire community together 1 time a day, and it could be for a wine tasting at the end of the day. It could be homemade scones in the morning with lattes and cappuccinos. It could be a sushi rolling class. It's pretty diverse as far as the offering, but we really want to get the entire community together once a day to take a break and to celebrate a little bit. And it's always centered around food and sometimes alcohol. And we get a great turnout. I bet you we get, consistently 30 or 40% of the community that'll come down and join us. And, once the offering for the day is prepared, then the CC will email everybody in the community, and they come out of their offices and come down and hang out. It's been a really great program. So we do that. And then we also, the CCs also will prepare kind of more private offerings for the decision makers that are in the community. So if you rent a private office and you're the decision maker, our team will spend time. We get to know everybody, but we pay special attention to the decision makers, and we'll prepare something unique for them once a quarter. And so it's important to know what their favorite wine is, what types of food they like, where they like to go. What types of things they're celebrating, whether it's an anniversary or some kind of a business milestone. But we try to really look for things that are unique, to those specific people that we can celebrate with them. And we keep a database of it so everybody, all of our team members can share information, when they have conversations with people. But it's very deliberate and targeted, but it looks on the outside very spontaneous.
It's so interesting, to hear you talk about this, because it's so hospitality driven, and it seems to make so much sense when we say we're in the hospitality business. But I don't know any other brands that are executing like that. And you've been doing it for so long, and it started from sitting by the pool and saying, wow, what a delight and surprise. Yeah. And yet even your systematic approach to delighting and surprising the decision maker, so much sense. It's just a win all around. It's such a great experience for the members. Why would anyone ever leave? Well,
that's the whole point, right? We want to make it sticky, and we want to make it so people can't imagine being anywhere else. I had a really crazy experience a couple of years ago. I was in San Francisco, and I was in line at a coffee shop, and there were two women in front of me, and they were talking, and and I was listening to the conversation. I was behind them, so I couldn't help but hear it. And they said, "Yeah, it's just crazy, and these places are really cool, and every day they send this unique food thing." And my friend Betsy works there, and they kept going on, and they were actually describing a friend of theirs that was a member at Shift Bannock, and it blew me away. And so I said hi, and we started talking. And but what happens is, oh, yeah,
that's wild.
Well, what happens is that we send a photograph of the food offering to all the members, so they know what's in store or what we're offering them that day. And then what they do is a lot of people email it to all their friends across the country and say, see what I'm
Yeah.
see how cool, my office is, and people love to share that. So it is a differentiator. And for us, it makes sense. I mean, we also have a full open bar. I mean, any member can ask for a glass of wine or a cocktail, and it's all, all the liquor that we serve is top shelf. It's good wine. It's all curated for, wine and liquor that we know that our members will like. And even in spite of doing all of that and giving it away, we have beer on tap and we have, other food offerings. We're still operating on a 30+% margin. And so a lot of people will look at it and say, well, how can you afford to do that? How can you give away, all the liquor and all the food? And it's, I think that for us, it's really part of our whole value proposition. And the more that we can lean into that, the better it gets for everybody.
Yeah, and people are willing to pay for a premium, right? And and back to your stickiness part of the conversation is, I mean, through COVID, you dealt with some of that stickiness, right? I mean, the unique thing that you have is you actually own 2 of your 3 buildings, right? And so
Yes.
you were able to address that in a different way. Do you want to talk about how kind of you address members and staff through COVID?
Yeah, it was a horrible time for all of us. And I remember I actually had COVID. I was sick for about a month I think it was mid-February. I was really ill from mid-February to mid-March. And I remember, sitting at my kitchen table, just sweat dripping down my face, working because I had to. And my son came up to me and he goes, "God, you look like shit. Are you okay?" And, but I remember wondering what was going to happen. And, at that point in time, I got a call from the managing partner of our tax and accounting firm. And he said, "Hey, just heads up, there's going to be, the mayor is going to issue a stay-at-home order next week." And we heard that and we didn't know what to do. And so of course we looked at our agreements to see if legally we could charge members during that time if they didn't have access. And then we started thinking about, well, whether we can or we can't, how do we want to approach it? And we made the decision actually to forego rent from our entire community at that time. And we decided a couple of days after we started kind of looking at everything that we would give everybody free rent in the month of April of 2020. And that was scary. And I actually had to write a check personally for that and loan the company money. And it turned out fine, but boy, it was a pretty intense time, and what happens, a lot of people really were grateful. And I was getting email after email from members, saying that we don't know what we're going to do. We're not sure how we're going to handle it. We're concerned about our rent. And, the email that we sent out was basically just to say that, that we had been getting contacted and that people were, a lot of people were afraid, including us. And we wanted to take that off the table and help them. And we had it created a lot of goodwill in the community and a lot of very happy members in the long run. It turned out fine, but it was real touch and go there for a while.
Yeah, I was clicking back here through my email, seeing if I could find it. So by the way, I am one of those people that I don't think I'm part of the mailing list anymore, but I was for a while, where I'd get this food and I'd send it to clients or other operators, be like, "See, this is what I'm talking about." But the reason I say that is I was just clicking back because I did get that. I got that email that you sent out. And it was so touching because not only was it, "Hey, we're not going to charge you for rent," but it was like, "We want you to take care of you and your families." And so I think that's where you create stickiness, when people realize that you are they are part of the Shift family, right? They're not just
Yeah.
another person paying. And so that servant leadership goes a long, long way when you serve others.
I agree, and that's one of our core values is mutuality, and which is a $15 word that and for us, what it means is that whenever we make a decision, a business decision, we evaluate all the stakeholders, and so we try to look at it from our perspective as a company. We look at it from our employees' perspective. We look at it from the member perspective, the community, the planet. And we try to come up with outcomes that serve all stakeholders. And it's really hard to do because a lot of times decisions, the different stakeholders will kind of compete with one another for, different outcomes. But we've been practicing that for 10 years, and it gets a lot easier over time. But we really try to not only take care of our members and our team, but also be active in community philanthropy. And we've had we'll actually have a zero carbon footprint. We've had for the last 4 years. We're planting trees every year to offset our carbon emissions in our real estate and then the operating companies. And that's important for us to try to leave the planet a little bit better than how we found it.
I'll stick in a follow-up question here related to kind of culture. Grant, one of the other things I remember you mentioning on our visit is, kind of how you think about your team. And I remember you giving an example of you had a team member who really loved, I can't remember if it's like a band or if it was some sort of dance performance. You had gotten her tickets, to something, and she was super excited about it. And, I think you were talking about sort of, incenting retention and, kind of, again, surprising and delighting your team, and how sometimes, the things that are motivating are not necessarily the bonus that we know is coming, but you paying attention, being thoughtful, and doing something for your team that, is exciting for them. So can you talk about,
Sure.
that part of your culture a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, it's actually the employee's Maggie Smith, and she's been with us for over 5 years now, and she's a former dancer and just loves ballet. And we're fortunate enough to have a really cool international dance festival in Vail. In fact, we were just up there a couple of weeks ago, and it's a 2-week long festival. And Maggie had danced all of her life and really wanted to go. And so we ended up getting her really great seats for the opening night of the Vail Dance Festival a couple of years ago. And then, hooking her up with a hotel and all that. And we try to do the same thing with our team that we do to members, and really get to know them and find out what they like. And any of the gifts that we give them they're personal, and they're based on what they're interested in and what they enjoy. And we try to treat our team the same way that we want them to treat members. And we talk about that quite a bit, of how we want to take care of our community. And so our leadership team tries to do the same thing for all of our employees.
Yeah. So talking about your team, I think now's probably a good time to kind of talk about, you recently brought in the management, right, in-house. You had been using a third-party manager for a while, and allowed for you to focus on the growth and just the design and things like that were important to you. But recently, this bringing in management and having that staff under the Shift actual brand was important to you.
Yeah, it's been a long process. We were with our previous provider for 4.5 years, and they managed Shift remotely. And they have centers across the country that they manage. And we were one of, I believe, 12 centers that they were managing, or we were 3 of 12 that they managed. And we got to the point where we really wanted this to be local, and we wanted to actually have a much much more control over the culture of what we wanted to create. And we wanted to be on site, and we wanted to really form the company even closer to what our core values are as an organization. And so that process has been really difficult. And trying to put together a corporate team in this environment, we literally hired a controller, director of marketing, a manager, ops people. It's just been, in this time frame, it's been really challenging. But I think we're close to on the other side of it now, where we took over management on June 1st, and it feels great. It feels really great to be at the helm of our own ship. And for us, it's been very rewarding. And I'm grateful for the time that we work with them, but also very excited for our future, and to build something that isn't totally in our image. And that's the tricky part, I think, that when you've got a professional management firm that they're managing, anyone who does that is managing multiple brands. And so there's all the brands they manage are different and distinct. And then there's the actual brand and culture of the management firm. And so it's pretty easy to get lost in that. And we wanted to have a lot more control over that. So we're happy with the decision we made.
Yeah, and I think another part, shifting strategies like that, bringing that back in. I mean, I think I said it earlier, you own 2 of your 3 buildings. Your last one was actually a lease. I know you started looking at leasing additional. I mean, I think you got pretty far in negotiations on a handful of them, and ultimately you've made the decision that the ownership route is the route you prefer to go, just from the ability to build equity.
Yeah, the economics are really compelling. The Littleton location that our last location that we built, we leased that space, and I think our rate now is around 30 triple net, and our expenses are, 11 or 12 bucks a foot. And when you compare that to an owned model, it's pretty staggering when you look at the difference. And in a mortgage payment, there's obviously 2 components. There's a principal, part of your mortgage payment, and then there's an interest part. And just the interest part, if you equate it to a rate per foot, the interest part on both of our Corona and Bannock locations is about 10 bucks a foot. And so that spread between $10 and $30, that, the $20 a square foot, is literally, it's revenue that just goes into our pocket. And so both our Corona and Bannock locations are a lot more profitable than Littleton, because that first $20 we're keeping. There's also a lot of other tax benefits. There's a bonus depreciation law that we've taken advantage of, and also cost segregation. Component depreciation or cost segregation basically is it's identifying the building materials that you use in a renovation, and then assigning a useful life to them. And so, paint might have a 1-year depreciation schedule, carpet might have 5, but we hire a tax firm to go in and assign a useful life to all the materials. And so what happens is, a lot of the materials, we can depreciate 40 or 50% of a project in 1 year, and sometimes you can do it more. And so under the last administration, they passed a bonus depreciation law that was very favorable to developers, and this applies to operating companies and properties that you own. But in our Littleton deal, we raised 3.8 million of equity to do that deal. It's a lease deal, and we were able to actually expense, because of bonus depreciation, about 3.2 million of the 3.8 in 1 year. And so that's a credit against income. And so if you get $1 million credit, then you're, the first $1 million that you make, whether it's W-2 income or capital gains, is all tax-free. So you just don't have those, you don't have that, those compelling economics traditionally in leaseholds. It's different now because of the bonus depreciation law. But I think that when you combine the economic component plus the tax advantages, I'd much rather own. And as we expand, we're going to focus 100% on owning the properties that we expand into. It's much more difficult because you're buying the building, and there's a whole other component to it. But I think it's a lot more meaningful financially. $20 a foot, and you multiply that on your square footage of your building, it's really significant.
What's the square footage that you like to do?
So our first deal, the Corona location it's 15,600 square feet, and Bannock, our second one, was 22.6. And then our third, the Littleton location, is 28.4 about. And, we really think that, we've got to be north of 20,000 feet to make our model work. And I'd say, even, the 28 to 50,000 foot model, I think, is the bigger that we go, I think the more efficient you can make it. I've heard that Kiln, I don't know if you guys are familiar with their brand or not, but I think they're doing a 70,000 foot deal in Boise, and which is huge.
That's a lot of space to take down in Boise.
It is.
Wow.
It is. But I think that the larger it is, the more scale you have. It's pretty interesting. The difference between the profitability of our Corona location, which is 15.6, and our Bannock location is really staggering. The Bannock location literally is 4 times as profitable as Corona. And it's about the same to run both of them. Staffing expenses outside of rent or the mortgage payment, staffing is the largest, but our staff is about the same. So yeah,
that's the interesting thing about this model, right? There's like stair steps in staff.
Yeah.
So you can get 8,000 feet ish before you have to add that expense on. So you can really optimize. I'm curious though, somebody brought this up, I think on an email exchange you were on, is Dunbar's theory, which is Dunbar's theory.
I don't know that. I know what that is.
So we were on an email exchange, and hold on, I'm blanking. Somebody mentioned, so Dunbar's rule is that you can know like 150 people well.
Yeah, I got it. Dunbar's number is the notion that there exists a cognitive limit on human groups of about 150 individuals.
Huh.
So the point, it was Neil from Brooklyn Creative Group. So can you scale how you serve your members, up to, if you went to 50,000 feet? Because that's way more than 150 members.
I think we could if our staff ratio was similar. Yeah. I think that's really, we tend to be a little bit more staff heavy. So, we're running at our Main Street location, we've got 3, almost 4 FTEs there. We have a general manager, community manager, we have a culinary concierge, then we have a full-time day porter. We're almost full-time.
Okay.
So we're 4 FTEs and 28,000 feet, and Bannock is 3. Oh, it's actually Bannock is actually the same. It's 3.5 ish. But I think that if we had, if we would scale and we would maintain a really healthy ratio, I think we could. And I'm excited to try, and I'll tell you.
We'll do the case study on it after you get there.
Yep.
Yeah, 50,000 feet is just a lot of square footage, right? You've got to find a really big sub market. And I always tell people I'd rather fill up something that's 25 to 35,000 feet and go put another dot on the map somewhere else and be able to cross sell and offer a different product and everything else. But everyone's got a different strategy for sure.
Yep. I think our industry is evolving too. I mean, for us, I think that we're really embracing the concept of making Shift more like a social club and amenitizing it even further. I mean, right now we've got, every space that we have, we have outdoor workspace, which is really important in Colorado, but, we have, gym facilities, we have yoga studios, meditation rooms, areas where members can book massage, have a massage therapist come in and do work, massage chairs, and on and on. And I think that, the more that we lean into that, the more we realize that that's the future. And I think that, the shifts of the future will look a lot more like a cross between, Battery in San Francisco and, maybe our Littleton location and, maybe Equinox, right? Kind of a high-end athletic club. And that seems to be our direction. And I think that we could actually grow, having, being even 50 to 70,000 feet with that model could be super cool.
Well, so that's a great point that you make. If you want to, the amenities take space, right? So if you want to diversify what you offer, you have to take the square footage. So, talk about, well, I'm curious about your meeting room and event business. Is that something that you offer in your locations?
It is. Yes, we've hired a salesperson that was with Marriott for 17 years. And, Ryan has basically built the event and meeting platform for us. And primarily we're focused at our larger locations at Bannock and Shift Littleton. But we're, at the Littleton location, we're doing weddings, we're doing 50th birthday parties. We're charging around $5,000 a day for wedding celebration, and it's pretty crazy. We've had some months that that meetings and events is our second highest category. First is office. Yep. Office is about 80% of our gross revenue, and but meetings and events are second. But we've had, having one person focus on that, I think has been really useful for us, because it's a whole different business.
Was there some resistance on your behalf to get into that, or did it seem clear?
No, I was pushing for it years ago, and it took a fair amount of time to start doing it. But he's been with us now for a year and a half, and it's pretty staggering. We've had some really big months, especially during summers. It's a surprise. I mean, we never thought that we'd be having event business that would equal or surpass meeting volume. But it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's a super unique part that you have with Bannock, having that outdoor space that the conference rooms open up to, and then Littleton, obviously you can see it behind me, right? It's easy to understand why it's perfect to have a wedding or some type of baby or wedding shower or, bachelorette event or all kinds of stuff. So definitely it plays off the hospitality component, right? And that's such a big part of what this industry's evolved to, right? And I think there was a time where everyone had to go to a Regis or the local mom and pop. Well, now they have to decide, right? And so they get to decide where that stickiness is, right? Where they feel comfortable, where they want to continue to go back to. Just the same way as, right? Rosewood is somewhere where you look forward to going to.
Right.
I can tell you, I spent a lot of time in Colorado, and I always look forward to going through your spaces and spending time with you and your team, just because it's always an experience, right? It doesn't
thank
matter
you.
whether it's a breakfast meeting or lunch or happy hour, whatever. It's always, the team is always on top of everything. And it's just amazing just to see how the organization works and the amount of touch points that go into it.
Yeah, we have a great team, and they work hard and they do a great job. It's really fortunate to have the team that we do.
Grant, I'm curious. So your model feels very current in terms of hospitality, social club. It feels, timely, like post-COVID. What do people want out of, they have to leave, like motivating them to leave their house. You were in front of that with the experience. And the event piece, right? So you've picked a model that also lends itself to diversifying your revenue streams. I don't see this done very often. What's hard about it? Why are others not? There's just, this option doesn't exist anywhere near where I am, except the battery. But you have to be batteries exclusive. I can't remember what you know what I mean? Like in sort of, accessible clubs. What is it that keeps others from doing it?
I know it's a good question. I'm actually not sure. I think that it's super complicated from the standpoint of, trying to run an event business, at a shared workspace is a little bit tricky at times, because sometimes they might want to start their event at 5, and our members are maybe working a little bit later that day. But I don't know, our demographic really is, most people are here maybe starting at 9 and they're kind of out by 4 or 5, and they're off to pick up their kids from school, or they're leaving. But I think that the challenge is just the coordination of all of it. There's the rental, the event rental piece, but also catering and alcohol, and there's just a lot of factors. And so having someone who's got a background and can manage all that is really important. But I don't, and I think that it's also the design. I mean, you've got to have a space that people want to be in.
Right.
And what we're finding is that people would much rather be in a Shift location than some dark, shitty, hotel conference space. They want to be able to walk outside and have be in the sun and, not be a cave dweller. And so, I think a lot of people would really prefer that. And so I challenge other operators to build something similar, because you can monetize it, but it's got to be cool. It's got to be, it can't look like one of those hotel spaces that we don't want to be in.
We were in a hotel last weekend and there were, I don't know, 3 or 4 weddings happening. And I said something to my daughter, who's only 10, but she's like, people get married in hotels? And it's like, they do. Yep.
Yeah, I think one of the scariest things for operators to take on, even Grant, as we've had conversations with other operators, just in collaboration, is the cost line of additional employees, right? I mean, I think it takes time to ramp up and build that event business, right? This doesn't happen.
Yep.
And you're carrying 1 to 2 people more than most operators across the country do, right? And so you really have to justify that and hire the right people, really. I mean, that's such a major part that's involved. But I think that's part of the scary part for Jamie, for a lot of these operators. And you're a former operator and you get to work with a lot of them.
Yeah, it's its own business, I mean, it really is. It's not it's not a membership driven, subscription driven business like the rest of it. And it's got its own, it's really having to learn something completely different than what we do every day.
Yeah. No, I think you've hit on a number of things. It's the, kind of a mindset piece, but also in the design, you have to create a space that's not just a corporate office, right? There's shitty hotels and shitty office space, and no one wants to spend time in either one. So, So what's on the horizon? What are you excited about next? besides your non-work plans that are coming
Besides my
up?
non-work, it's really to take Shift to the next level. And I really, we've been talking a lot in our planning sessions about what we want our brand to evolve into. And I think it's really to, the next big project that we do, I want to incorporate a lot of other things that we're seeing, like we've been talking about. And I really want to take it as far as we can. And my goal is to have a pool. I'd love to have a place that people could hang out by the pool and work on their laptops.
Oh, like a social pool, not like I'm swimming laps, like yeah.
Yeah, social pool. I mean, and of course laps, right?
But with watermelon skewers with the spice that Giovanni says with his fabulous accent.
That's right. Yeah, no, I think that's really the direction we'd like to head, and just see how much further we can take it. And I think that in a model like that, the private offices would still be the prime driver, the revenue driver, but I'd love to see what that looks like. I mean, battery, I know someone told me, I don't know if this is true or not, but the battery's got 15,000 members that pay $3,000 a year just for access to battery.
Sure. I'm no question. I'm sure that's true.
Yeah, so it's 40, that doesn't surprise me.
40 plus million a year just to walk in the door, right? Yeah. And then you walk in and you pay probably slightly higher prices for
lunch and everything. Yeah.
Yep. But I don't know. I'd love to kind of take it further, and then I'd love to lean into the art component too. I mean, for me, the thing that I just have been amazed at Burning Man is the art, and some of it is just such huge, complex. The scale is just massive, and I'd love to be able to integrate some of that into more of a campus. So if you're listening and you're an investor and you want to help us build that vision, call me.
Grant, have you ever been to the East Bank Club in Chicago?
I haven't.
So I used to work right next to the East Bank Club, and it's where like Oprah belonged and Michael Jordan would be, like, I mean, that was not primarily who went there, but when you mentioned the pool, so the East Bank Club, the roof deck pool was like the place to be. Yeah. And I started my first space in Chicago, and I didn't have, I just was naive and didn't have the balls to ask for money, like you just mentioned. But that's what I wanted. Like what you're describing, I was like, there was no place. The East Bank Club, you could get your hair cut, you could work out, you could play indoor soccer, you could go to the pool and have your friends over and have drinks, you could get smoothies after your workout. I mean, you could do everything except work there. And I was like, I just want the East Bank to be my office. So that was like my vision, when I started, and I got nowhere close to it because capital. And
I mean, how cool would that be, right?
And I feel like now is the time, and what you're describing is that I might have to move to Denver.
Well, we'd love
when you're done, let me know and I'll start the search.
Yeah, so I think it's awesome. I mean, we're continuing to see the hospitality portion and the products of our industry continue evolving, right? It's not just officing, it's social. It's I mean, we're seeing some of these special car garages that people have for their use and other things. I'm trying to hook
man caves.
But yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, I think Gio's kind of poking me a little bit there. We actually bought our first industrial property this last December, and we're trying to make this we're trying to make it the industrial space cool, which is a little bit of a challenge, but we are renovating a 20,000 foot building now and basically dividing it up into smaller spaces, anywhere from 800 to 2,500 feet, where people that have car collections or that want to work on their motorcycles or have space to do that, and also small companies that maybe an electrician or a plumber that want to run their business out of a space like that. So we're kind of experimenting with that. That's been a lot of fun.
Grant, that's like a new category. Gio, that was a good nudge.
Yeah,
It's like not
it is.
co-warehousing, it's different. That's interesting.
Yeah,
And the craziest part,
Kane and I have been emailing back and forth this week about it. I think it's super cool, and it's just oh boy, it's a hell of a lot easier than running a shared workspace. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so complex. I mean, every day, just kind of scratch my head.
But you love it.
I do love it. I'm so passionate about it, and but boy, is it hard, as we all know.
well, Jamie, I think this is a good segue to your question.
Oh, you already asked so Grant, what is it that keeps you up at night?
Oh, I think it's a lot of the macroeconomic news that are or issues, potential issues. It's geopolitical risk. I mean, I'm much more concerned about that than I am anything happening in Denver. I think that we're just in we're in a really crazy time right now. And I've been, when COVID happened, I probably learned more about economics and economic history in the last couple of years. I've probably read more than I have my entire life combined. And I've been diving into a lot of the work that people like Neil Howe have done and Ray Dalio, and they've talked a lot about just these reoccurring trends. And I think that the situation with China right now is very concerning, and obviously Russia. And we have one issue, one plane that gets shot down in Chinese airspace or something like that, and we're off into a really uncertain future. And so I really hope that there's more temperance, especially, I know that the US just sent another delegation to Taiwan, and, I see that shit and I get really uncomfortable. And so I think on the large scale, it's that. And in Denver, it's, I think our administration has done a really great job trying to address the homeless issue. It's one that is, I think it's a problem everywhere. I was in Portland a couple months ago, and visiting an operator there, and was blown away just how just the impact that homelessness has had on that city. And Denver's similar. I mean, I was down. My son and I went out to dinner and a movie the other night. We had dinner in Larimer Square, and we walked to Pavilions, which is about a 8 or 10 block walk on the 16th Street Mall. And it's scary. It's completely different than it was, 2-3 years ago. And a lot of abandoned storefronts, and, it really is, it's really unfortunate just to see what's happened. And so the homeless piece, and just all of the, we had in the riots 2 years ago, we had a lot of buildings damaged, and, downtown Denver looked like Beirut. I mean, all kinds of storefronts and graffiti and, cars that had been vandalized. And so anyway, there's I think it's a cross of kind of all those things that keeps me up.
Well, Grant, really appreciate your time. And I mean, I always love talking to you just because you're so transparent and open, both personally and professionally. So just thank you so much for taking this time, and thank you for pushing all of us to look at things at a higher level. You certainly continue to push the bar and raise that product into the industry overall. So thank you so much for that.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I enjoy talking to you guys.
Thanks, Grant. And we'll see you in Frisco in a few weeks.
Yes. Hopefully I won't look too haggard.
We'll take you
All right,
however
guys.
you show up.
All right. Perfect.
Thanks, Grant.
All right. See you guys.